Not at your age. Exactly. Something good.
Starting soon.
Receive here.
Is there something you have to hit on the YouTube side to tell it to go live?
No, because I'm on the watch page here. But
Oh, I thought you were on the streamer page there.
Is that right?
I mean, that's the stream, and then this is the actual, just the web page. But for some reason, I don't know why the address is different up there.
And they'll say that.
There it is. I just went to the subscriber page and came back. Whew. So it is live.
All right, so we're
I'm not-
live and good. All right.
Yeah, and that's just a matter of people see the link externally.
So now I can breathe.
Yeah.
The first hurdle is.
And I can hear the audio coming through.
Do you have any headphones on you?
Bring any.
Okay.
I need some of the studio headphones, right?
Yeah, I just want to, so we don't hear that. I just want to be able to monitor the volume on there.
Right. The real question is how well we're going to pick up the speaker. Especially if the chatter doesn't die down.
I try not to,
Seeing that guy's head.
I did get it up to this one.
Yeah, it sounded good. I'm wondering if maybe we want to ask people at that front table to scoot around. It's not that big of a deal to me, but I'm alright. Yeah, that's the funny issue. You could increase the size of the screen, just kind of trim him off the bottom, basically. I think maybe adjusting the seating would be better because some of the shorter speakers may not feel very much of the screen is. Yeah, and there is that kind of bezel around the scene. Seems like we're about at a 30-second delay.
We'll stand up there for a minute just to see where I hit it here.
Yeah. Yeah, head height for you is about center of screen. Yeah, sure.
Stepping over it.
Yeah, it'd be better to just. You're not subscribed to the stream site?
So you think we get this place covered?
I guess not.
You do. Good to see you. Yeah. Good.
Decent crowd.
Did you make any
I'm
news?
wondering if it'll get up to over half full. It's about half
Oh,
right
good,
now.
good. I had my schedule. There's something in finance and some stuff happened. Anyway, I didn't get into it. Like 5 or 6.
We do hope that the din calms down, otherwise that's going to be hard to pick out the speaker over. Oh yeah, because they got the PA up there. Actually, I don't see the mic up there.
There's a gooseneck that's up there.
Oh, okay.
When we first came in, I thought I saw a lot of deer sitting on it. Maybe they're not going to use that.
Hopefully not.
It was okay. Yeah. Better than my Five Guys hamburger. Depends on how much you like it. That's my house. That's all I do.
Like these things on the computer, but they're very all these scenes kind of blend into the. Yeah. Which, who knows what will be next year? Sickness still hasn't really left yet, has it?
What's that?
Still a little under the weather, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I've still got all that congestion that's got to work itself out now.
Yeah.
Like every day added a new symptom last week.
Do you drink any hot drinks, tea or anything? That can help kind of loosen the lungs. Here's all nice chamomile or something.
Did you see
Take out a bunch of the background. Congratulations. Cleared it up quite a bit. Yeah, it's still very, very chattery though. Well, I just chatting, but at least that should, in theory, filters out. Yeah. Supposed to start time should be at 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, we are so delighted to be here at the University of South Carolina. Amazing weather, beautiful location, and a wonderful southern hospitality. And forget about that until it's done. I want to start off this morning with special thanks to our team who helped us get this organized. To Dean Pedersen, who's also here on our board, who offered this lovely space to us. To Associate Dean Tony Hodges, there he is, somewhere there he is, also helped us organize. The actual logistical person behind all of this and helping us get it all together. And then to Dr. Geisha Beckley and Denise Boyd, who are the last evening, our opening session today. The theme of the convening was really set a nice tone for what we're going to do these 2 days, and they're going to open us up with teaching here in a minute. I would like to invite Dr. Jen to come up here and say a few words of welcome and get us started. Morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful Columbia, South Carolina day, right? So these days like this, you can get outside and be moist. Well, certainly, I want to welcome you all here. This is very exciting for us to host this. I've been involved with CTAG for actually quite a while. I was lucky enough to actually be on a proposal for one of the original members that developed this idea of being part of an EDD that was different. And certainly, from my perspective, a conference like this, the convening, the work that's being done in improvement science is essential for us to grow and move forward. When you look at our institution, what we do in our college, certainly there are many things that we have that have been improved. Through improvement science, through work
Do you
that's
handle the
done,
sound?
whether it's our
Do you handle the
PBS
sound?
network,
It's hard to hear.
To some of our work done in detention of teachers. It's been really an exciting time for us. And certainly I echo your congratulations or thanks to those individuals for helping host this. We know we have a wonderful schedule for you. I know I'm not the main event, although I could be, I guess not. But I did just want to say thank you to you all, and certainly hope that you have a chance to explore the city, explore our campus. It's very walkable. Everything's about 3 or 4 blocks away. You can really explore some of the nice scenery around the rivers not that far away either. So enjoy your stay in Columbia. Enjoy the time here at this convening. And at this time, what I would like to do is I'd like to invite our Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Dr. Michelle Wright. As an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose territory on which we are gathered, we open this morning's convening with a critical reminder about relationship to space and place. At the outset, we wish to offer a clear and explicit acknowledgement of the responsibility we bear to both consider the history of and the strategic interruption of legacies of settler colonialism. That responsibility necessarily begins by valuing where indigenous groups are gathered on their land. As such, we honor and thank the Congaree, the Yamasee, and the Wateree and Catawba as the traditional inhabitants of the lands on which the city of Columbia and the surrounding areas were built. It is equally important to recognize that the state of South Carolina is still home to many tribes, including the Beaver Creek, the Catawba, the Chickasaw, the Churaw, the Eastern Cherokee, the Edisto-Natchez-Coosa, the Pee the Santee, the Waccamaw, the Wassamasaw, and Southern Iroquois. We are grateful to have the opportunity to present and work in this territory. If you don't know me, I am Jill Perry, the Executive Director of the Carnegie Project on Education Doctor. I have with me here our Associate Director, Debbie Handel. Please say hello, if you don't know her. Out front running our table, we have our Operations Manager, Carolyn Carlin, and our Graduate Research Assistant, Emma Abruzio, who, without these 3 women, I would not be able to do what I do. So if you need anything, reach out to them while you are here. I want to say welcome to the 24th convening of CTAG. We've been around for 12 years. We are actually at College Edge, Nebraska. We have now officially had our largest convening. Because June is the largest, but it's now home to South Carolina. There are 222 participants here of 88 of our member institutions across 2 countries. We have 117 members altogether. We've invited 4 new members recently. American University, Iowa State University, Shenandoah University, and the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill. I invite you all to help us welcome them in, as well as those of you who are first-time conveners, for those of you who've been around for a while, to welcome everyone into our community, our professional development community. I thought about our topic this morning and wondered what could I say that would relate to activism and our faculty who run these programs. And I thought, as faculty, are we activists? And what does that mean? How many of you say yes? How many of you say no? How many of you aren't sure? Right? So I've been known to say that faculty work at higher ed and not for. And over the 12 years that I've been questioned, I've really questioned what's true, because I've seen some remarkable things happen at different institutions. I've seen faculty come together in very difficult situations to design these programs, to implement them, and to really advocate for why the EUD should be a professional degree. So I question, are you all grassroots activists in the work that you do? So I started doing some research, and I came across the work of higher ed expert Adriana Gazar and her colleague Jaime Lester, who did some research on faculty leaders who were doing grassroots activism and termed them as tempered radicals. And they defined those folks as individuals with no formal position of authority who are operating from the bottom up, are interested in and pursue organizational changes that often challenge the status quo of the institution. How many of you are doing that? If you're working on changing the EUD, that's what you're doing, right? They built this framework on the work of Myerson's tempered radical framework. So I took this framework and I applied it to some CPED faculty. There are 3 tenets or aspects: psychological, which are really individual identity aspects; social psychological, which are group dynamics; and organizational, which really focuses on the organization itself. And within there are tools and ways, that they strategies that they go about and create change. So as I read about their work and Myerson's framework, I wondered if this was the way that faculty work for higher education in the CPED work, and how they act as activists to achieve change around the EUD. I applied this to some of our colleagues and looked at it, and what I found was that we really do engage as tempered radicals at our institutions. We engage a lot of these strategies. At the psychological or individual level, we have motivation, where we want to do the work, we believe in this work, we see it as the right thing to do, we want to prepare educators to go out and create that change. We do this because of our own identities as educators. We see ourselves as challenged and tasked with preparing others to go out and create change. We are also very resilient. We are able to bounce back from difficult circumstances. I know many of you have seen these. Because of our optimism and belief in this work, our ability to create networks, small networks across our own faculty, networks outside of our faculty, and across this consortium. And we're able to do this work in small steps and be patient enough to do it to faculty ways of being. Open communication and transparency around sharing ideas of program data. What's really happening in our programs? What are the statistics of where our students are going after they graduate? How many students are we getting? Planning design retreats, bringing everyone together for an afternoon around some food to talk about how do we want to go about changing these programs. Engaging them in reading groups. Let's read this article by Tony Bright to talk about what it means for us and for our programs. They build, or you all build, internal and external networks that you can call upon when you get frustrated and need support in creating these changes. These are the tactics that you use. Occasionally you have to call in some power dynamics where you reach out to your deans and ask for support because you can't get the kinds of changes that you want. Or you work to reframe the conversation to help change ideas and bring on new faculty. At the organizational level, where we focus on culture and structure, in this sense we see academic capitalism, which is engaging in market-like behavior, combined with traditional values like academic freedom, where you work to change the organization by exposing economic matters such as declining enrollments, declining incomes, but couple that with ideas of maybe we could get a grant to do this, maybe there's some publication opportunities for us, to rally the troops and make this kind of change with you. So in this room, we are filled with many tempered radicals. I'm sure as you look at these ideas, you see yourself in some of them. Our convening theme seeks to empower you more to do this hard work, to work for higher education, to create this change, so that ultimately our schools of education are going to impact and change the work that's happening on the ground. And our work is meaningful in that process. We are changing the academy and doing it across many different sectors. But what I wanted to know is, do you see yourself in this model as tempered radicals? So to begin our 2-day journey, I asked you to consider how might you be a tempered radical or a change agent or an activist for the EDD. And I'd like to ask you to share at your table for the next few minutes one of these strategies that you have used to enact change in your institution. And to meet with your colleagues, introduce yourselves, build community, and talk about this for a few minutes.
It's just
Well, this is the UH table, so there's
All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring us back. I'm hoping that these were the first of many conversations that you will have with colleagues over the next 2 days as you learn and share with one another. I do believe that we are change agents, activists, and tempered radicals, and I really would like you to set some intention for this convening. And I'm going to challenge you to gather 3 ideas to bring back and share with your colleagues at home. I always encourage you to come back with some kind of report from this work so that you're building a network and support at your home institution. To gather 2 strategies to activate change at your institution, and to find 1 or hopefully more new colleagues that you can share ideas with. I want you to really indulge in these next 2 days as an opportunity for you to learn, for professional development for you, and to build your own network. And I hope you enjoy your time. I do have a couple announcements before we move on to our opening act. In the program, we have the honor of having Shawn Harper with us here tomorrow over lunch to do a talk. We mistakenly listed him as president of AERA. He's actually president-elect and will take that role in April of next year. I also want to point out some new and exciting things in the program. We have, as a result of this convening and work with Yesha Becton and Fenice Boyd, a special issue of our journal that will be coming out, and they are looking for authors for that, and there's information in the program. We are starting a new facilitation service where we will work with our institutions to go out and help them engage in this work with their faculty. There's some information about that on the front page, and if you're interested, let us know. We will have our next convening in October, so for those of you who are not aware, we are moving to once-a-year convening. It will be in Boston, and we'll share some more information about that tomorrow in the middle of October, which will be a beautiful time to be in Boston, I say as a Bostonite. And then I also want to make an announcement and let you know that if you are interested in any of our SIGs during lunch, you do not need to be a member of our CPED improvement groups. You are welcome to grab your lunch and join those meetings. We have an amazing program set up for you. We are going to be awarding our Dissertation and Practice of the Year Award. She just found out she's trapped somewhere traveling trying to get here, so that may not actually happen at lunch. That may happen later this afternoon. We have the Carnegie Foundation here with their iLead project that we will meet with tomorrow and learn about the work that they're doing. We have a wonderful reception that happens just after the convening here outside in this beautiful space that we have here. We have some interesting exchanges, 24 exchanges that we will have, including a report out by our Program of the Year Award winners, Drexel University. We also have more from our University of South Carolina colleagues who will be doing another presentation. And I was excited to see we have several EDD graduates on the program as well, so to go and hear about their work as scholarly practitioners. So, enjoy the program. Reach out to us if you have questions. I'm going to take this opportunity to bring up Dr. Yesha Becton, Chris Boyagis, Leah D'Amico, and Rhonda Jeffries, and Todd Lilly from the University of South Carolina to open our convening. Come on up.
Morning, everybody. My name is Chris Boyagis on behalf of the University of South Carolina. I'd like to welcome you to Columbia, South Carolina, and the main campus of the University of South Carolina. Today, we are going to lead a session that we're framing around the idea of an EDD activist. But before we get started, I want to introduce our online EDD in Curriculum Studies Program Coordinator, Dr. Rhonda Jeffries. She's going to tell all of you a little bit about where our program has started, where we are today, and where we hope to be going. tech cross.
All right, here we go. Okay, thank you, Chris. And after that little pause, I will welcome you again to CPED and to the University of South Carolina. The EDD program at the University of South Carolina transitioned in the early 2000s from a curriculum generalist degree to a degree centered on diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Our commitment to equity extended across our efforts to include our admissions policies, the program course of study and research methodologies, and practices that supported our graduates' implementation of the tenets of social justice in their professional lives. Looking back for a brief moment, our program began to see the benefits of our concerted efforts to embolden our doctors of education to activate their purpose, and we highlight just a few from a large cadre of activists who have worked to instill equity in the field of education at local, state, and national levels. Dr. Damara Hightower is Vice President of Provider Engagement and Partnerships with the Branch Alliance for Educator Diversity, a service-focused advocacy and empowerment organization dedicated to strengthening, growing, and amplifying the impact of educator preparation at minority-serving institutions in higher education. This national post enables Dr. Hightower to support the long-range goals of both diversifying the teaching profession and intentionally addressing critical issues of educational achievement for all students. Our next highlight is Dr. Lucas Clamp, and he's principal of River Bluff High School in the metropolitan Columbia, South Carolina area. He opened this predominantly white middle-class high school in 2013 and devoted himself to developing individual skills and talents across teaching and student personnel that has created a collective community dedicated to elevating achievement, particularly for students of color. Opportunity gaps were addressed for students of color, including increased rates of graduation from 81% to 94%, increased ELA passing scores from 42% to 69%, and increased math scores from 67% to 88% from 2014 to 2017. These are among the accomplishments that garnered Dr. Clamp the honor of 2019 National Principal of the Year. And finally, we highlight Dr. Kiehl Gross, who is the founder of Heart Ed Consulting, where he utilizes his experiences and talents to provide motivational talks and professional coaching for leaders in education across the country. While serving as the principal of Chapin High School in the Columbia area, he activated the research skills acquired in this program to deconstruct the variables that contributed to consistent achievement and opportunity differentials among Black and white students at his high-performing high school. In addition to Dr. Clamp, the National Association of Secondary School Principals also recognized Dr. Ross as the National Principal of the Year in 2018. As we look forward during this convening to promoting the future of the EDD activists, we honor the models set forth by individuals like these in hopes of growing the ranks of nationally and internationally recognized doctors of education, whose tangible contributions foster equity in education and socially just spaces in our communities.
right, thank you, Rhonda. All right, so today's session is going to be organized around 3 breakout sessions in which we are going to invite all of you to help us begin developing the ideas that we have around the EDD activists. We are going to start with a session that sort of identifies a portrait or starts to develop a set of characteristics for the EDD activist, how we might want to describe that idea. Then we'll move into a session about how do we support and how do we interact with our students in support of developing EDD activists. And then we'll also talk about how we might measure program impact of the program on that outcome, and then also outcomes for the EDD activists themselves. So in that process, what we're going to do is we're going to start by sharing some examples of what we think might be an EDD activist. We don't presume to say that this is what you should be aiming for in the work that we do today. We're just kind of trying to get the creative juices flowing by sharing an example, a real-world example of what might be considered an EDD activist. And then also, one last thing, at the end of each breakout session, there is a sheet of piece of paper on your table that will be a group collective data from the table. So we're going to collect that one sheet from the table in order to work on this idea after the session as well. So it's going to be a data source for us. So we're asking that one person from the table sort of become the table recorder, if you will. Okay? Oh, can you not hear me? I'm sorry. I was talking into it. Now I hear myself. Did everybody hear me in the back or no? Not at all? Okay? All right, good. I'm a former classroom teacher, so I can project if I have to. All right, so we wanted to start with one video for you of one of our recent graduates, Dr. Sharice Jackson. She is currently a college instructor at a university of South Carolina technical school in our state. We'll skip the video this time, and then I'll try to get that worked out for the next one, okay? And so now I introduce Dr. Yesha Beckton to get us started with our first session.
Good morning. Mic is live. All right. As we shared, it's our endeavor today to really begin to build the framework around what an EDD activist is. And as we met and began to discuss this back and forth, we thought we needed to first lay a foundation for just the term activist or activism, specifically as it relates to what we do in education. And so we want you to think about 4 things before we get into our breakout session. And the first is the guiding principles of CPED. If you will look into your folder, you should have a handout that outlines the CPED framework. And while I believe all 6 speak to activism in some form, I want to highlight just a few for you. Number 2, it says that the professional doctorate in education will prepare leaders who can construct and apply knowledge to make a positive difference in the lives of individuals, families, organizations, and communities. All right. Then number 4 says, provides field-based opportunities to analyze problems of practice and use multiple frames to develop meaningful solutions. Then if you would look at number 6, it says emphasizes the generation, transformation, and use of professional knowledge and practice. And so again, when we're thinking about the activists, we want to start here at the foundation with those CPED guiding principles. Even as you look at the description below of the scholarly practitioner, you will see the words that they have an obligation to resolve problems of practice. They have an obligation to resolve problems of practice. So that's the first thing that we want you to look at. The second, we want to reference the pre-reading, one of the articles that we provided to you, which really, it was entitled Activism Before and After Graduate Education Perspectives from 3 Cohorts of Masters of Social Work students. And it really provided a nice framework for looking at activism and how students engage in activism before and after they embark upon a program. And we know that this is not social work, but we want to look at a similar framework as it relates to the EDD, as it relates to the educational doctorate. Specifically on that particular article, they listed 12 specific activism activities, all right? And I'm just gonna share the 4 subtitles with you. One was political activities, electoral activities, community activities, and social action activities. All right, and so I want you to keep that in mind for when we get ready to do our group work. The third thing that we wanted you to take into consideration this morning is what are the stated mission and goals of your individual programs? We know, although we have some things in common, there's some certain things that are unique to certain programs. So what is the verbiage that's used in your particular program at your college or university? And last, taking into account also your professional work experience and expertise. So if you would look in the center of your table, there should be a blue sheet. Because again, we don't want this work to end here. But what we're going to do, and the reason we're collecting the forms, is we want to flesh out, based on your feedback, this framework, a definition. What does, if a new program comes on next year, that we will be able to really hand them this information to say, this is the body of work that we have around the framework of an activist. And we believe it's important that we explicitly state what that looks like amongst this group. So if you will look, it says the profile of the activist. The first would deal with the definition or the attributes and characteristics. What specifically, how would you define activist, specifically as it relates to education? Then the second one goes back to the actions. Remember I said with the social work context, they had 12 specific activism activities that were associated with the EDD activists. And so when we think about our individual programs, what interaction, what actions, what activities, what are we looking for from the activists? And then the last, any other descriptives that you may have. And so we're gonna allow for about 8 to 10 minutes for you to, within your groups, flesh that out, and then we're going to come around and just have a few tables to share. Again, there's a blue form in the middle, and if you could designate a scribe with your group, and that way we'll share out in exactly 10 minutes.
I think they're talking about in our fair action.
The HDMI may not be going out yet.
share out around the definition and action. I can walk to the front if. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pixamaya from UMass Lowell. Attributes and characteristics we talked about is being a change agent within their sphere of influence. Having social capital, that's the connections within and outside to bridge and bond. Really being motivated. And so that's meaning having a sense of urgency that if we don't do this now, then when, right? Actions that we would like to see our activists is understanding how they interact with constituents and how they lead. Having the ability to do consensus building, asking questions and challenging the status quo, and other descriptors was that we think activists should have a very thorough and critical lens and analysis, be centered and understand their own social identity and own privileges, and then understand the dynamics of the change process, because this work is hard and you need to know the arc of the work in which you engage in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was awesome. I saw a hand in this area.
I'll be really short. We had a great discussion, but we talked a lot on defining the activist as being able to make systems change, but at the local level. So you really have to understand your community, because we had similarities yet differences from what our students would be engaged in. And with that, a lot of activities would be, once again, building on that, is to understand the issues at the local and state agencies, and what change do they need, and for them to become involved in the community by building those partnerships and really looking for a variety and diversity of the stakeholders within that. So systems change at the local level was our main attribute.
Thank you so much. Thank you. One last group. Do we have any groups on this side that would like to share? See people pass the paper. Okay, we have a volunteer up front.
Thank you. For attributes, we had work from the bottom up, be evidence-based, know and work within your community, and we had a good, robust conversation about what the definition of community is, and be a good collaborator. For actions, understand the history and how it might inform future decisions, involve stakeholders, and challenge the status quo. And other descriptors, understand equity issues and social justice, build relationships with those who disagree and be able to have that discourse, and be self-reflective.
Thank you to all of you who shared. There was some good discussion going on. We're going to move further into discussion. Again, this was just to get an understanding of the foundation of what we're talking about when we talk about the EDD activists. Dr. Todd Lilly is coming to kind of further this conversation as we look at our individual programs and how we are supporting this work in terms of producing activists within our programs.
So I'm pleased to talk about Allie Jenkins. She is an EDD candidate I'm pleased to talk about Allie Jenkins. She's an EDD candidate. She'll be defending her dissertation in practice on November 11th. She is a kindergarten teacher here in Columbia, and she worked on using anti-bias literature to address stereotypes, including race, gender, ability, and family composition within her kindergarten classroom, and did great work engaging those kindergartners, talking about some subjects that, again, often adults are afraid to talk to. And in her dissertation in practice, which I hope you will look at once it is published, She has great excerpts from the kindergartners using their voice and what they go through throughout her action research period. So now I'll turn it over to Todd to talk more about how this work that culminated in her dissertation and practice was facilitated throughout the program.
Good morning, I'm Todd Lilly. I've had 4 cups of coffee this morning. And I'm no longer temperate. I'm a member of the faculty here at University of South Carolina, the Curriculum Studies. And I did my PhD up in Wisconsin. Deborah Brandt was one of my professors. Oh, I see a Wisconsin. Is there a badger in the back? Well, we got a couple of them, okay? But I studied with people like activists, like Gloria Ladson-Billings. I studied with Michael Apple, Diana Hess. We had quite a crew up there. They were activists, and they inspired me. They changed me. Because now when I remember, I often remember as I'm writing my syllabi, the words of Deborah Brandt, who was my PhD minor advisor. And she said to me, I'm tired of sitting around a table talking. That's what she told me. And that little phrase has stuck with me for a long time, and every time I design a course in that, I think about that. Do we want to just fill their heads with knowledge, or do we expect them to do something with it? So this morning in this section, what I'm going to ask you to do is brag about yourself. Now, how often in life are you encouraged to brag about yourself? Okay? So we want to know, what do you and your institution, what do you do to facilitate, to encourage this generation of activists, the EDD activists? So I'm going to be working with this green worksheet that's also in your folder. And please, don't wait for me to shut up before you start writing things down. I'm just going to give you some ideas about what I do and what we do. Yeah, I'm going to brag a little bit. But as I do, please think, not only do we do that, but we do it better, Todd. Okay? So I want you to be writing down, and then afterwards we'll, again, share these in the group. And don't get too concerned about where you're writing things on the sheet. It doesn't matter. You don't have to identify yourself unless you want to. If you want to put down your institution, that's fine. You don't have to. Okay? So the first thing is that we do here is we go fishing. And these are words and phrases taken right off our website to bring students in. I think we're looking for ringers. I think this speaks to the potential activists. So right off the bat, we're saying our program is going to involve activism. In fact, the methodology that we use in our program is action research. So action right off the bat before they even come in. And this was said written to me in an email by one of our potential admissions. And she said, I want to have my voice heard. I want to have my voice heard. We don't just want to sit around at a table talking. So I started thinking about my courses. We had this course called Organizational Change. And the final project, for example, I had was where they had to write a mock proposal for a presentation at an ASCD conference. Now from that group, and Allie was one of them, from that group, three of them actually put in a proposal to speak at a conference. And this is partial. This is Allie's, okay? The Allie that Dr. D'Amico talked about earlier. So we used the ASCD proposal from the internet, said, do it. You've got ideas. Get out there. So Allie and her classmate Amy, they wrote a proposal. They're writing a proposal now for the Jolly Conference at the University of Georgia. Do we have Georgia people in here? No? No? Oh, wait, I see one in the back, okay. I know you, Georgia people tend, after a couple of weeks ago, they tend to be a little afraid of South Carolina, but what? But at the Jolly Conference, and then we matched, you know, there are some really good activists at these conferences. And some of you might know the work of Donna Elverman or Peter Smagorinsky. Another course, Racial and Ethnic Diversity, final project. 2 choices. Construct a 3 to 5 day learning segment with 3 annotated lesson plans in which some aspect of racial or culturally relevant pedagogy is evident, encouraging them, because the majority of my students are teachers in the EDD program. So use this and give me evidence that you're using it in your classrooms. What are you doing? Or create a publishable multimodal blog. Write a blog. Be a writer. I'm connected with the website Busted Pencils. Has anybody heard of the Busted Pencils? Check it out. And then a year after this woman took my course, she writes back, my final project for your course, Racial and Ethnic Diversity in the curriculum, blah, 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 has had a profound effect on my instructional outlook. I am actually currently in the process of developing a new character education program that will be launched in my district's middle school next year. Tired of sitting around the table talking. And then some of the blog titles. Some of them wrote blogs, and I have access to a professional blog to publish them. Life in the Borderlands, Corridor of Shame, that was talked about last night, by the way, right? Take a Knee. These are some of the titles of the blogs that were written. And then lastly, it's not a fluke. There must be something in South Carolina water. Our own program director worked with one of her students, Hope Reed, who is now Dr. Hope Reed. And what they were doing is, what's all this labeling in school, in mathematics? Do kids in the lower, are they really stupid, the kids in the lower track? Can't they handle algebra? And the finding was, yeah, they can. They can. Counter narratives is activism. My wife sometimes refers to me as a rebel. I don't know about that. But because I've been active in advocating for students, advocating for teachers, advocating for the profession, advocating for ourselves, because I have been active, walking picket lines. I was here May 1st, 10,000 on the Capitol steps, 10,000 teachers from South Carolina schoolrooms leaving their posts, oftentimes defying authority to do it, putting their own, and we don't encourage, here's the tempered, right? 10,000 teachers show up on the steps, all wearing red, May 1st, 2019. Something is wrong. We're not doing right by the state's school children. So there was a conference here last summer, and because my wife called me a rebel, the conference organizers got in touch with me and they say, do you know any people who can come and present at our conference? I say, yeah, I might. So 5 of my students, current and former, presented at that conference. So, now it's your turn to brag about yourself. Why don't you take just a moment and write some things down on your paper. What are you doing besides sitting around tables talking? What are you doing? What is your institution doing? What is your program doing? And what are you doing in your classes? And then share them, please, with the people sitting around you. Okay? About 10 minutes. time to move on. Okay, so, when a Cornhusker speaks, I guess that's, we move. Well, did you hear anything good? Did you hear anything worth stealing and taking it back to your institution? Who would like to brag about what's going on in your institution? We have a taker. Come on down.
Anyways, I really like the idea of a cohort of faculty working together. I sometimes feel like it's an isolation chamber, and so the idea that you're constantly working with your team. That you're constantly working with a team of people to try and improve experiences for students, I think is really important.
And we have Taker in the back.
The microphone kind of scares me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. So in our dissertations, they're not officially dissertations of practice, but a lot of our students do action research, and a lot of people do theoretical or conceptual or other kinds of research. But at the last part of their dissertation is a call to action. And that call to action is supposed to be written really plain spokenly. They can use like testimonial, they can use a research or narrative methodology to do that. And that's been really, really powerful for our students. They just go into the dissertation defense with that call to action really firmly and confidently.
One of the things we talked about, debated at our table, is some of us have talked about really advertising our programs and in the admissions process being really upfront with what we are doing. And so therefore recruiting students that are already predisposed to activism. But then on the other hand, we have these traditional administrators, and do we really try to take them into the program and change them? So it's a tension.
I think we're doing some very creative things at the University of Missouri St. Louis. I was just explaining to my colleagues here at the table that we have a number of learning communities that are based in themes. So they're theme cohorts. And currently we have probably 4 or 5 of those running. A couple of those are related to activism and social justice. One of them is actually a social justice learning cohort. There's also another cohort around heritage leadership, sustainability, participatory culture, and social justice. That's a mouthful, but that's another, and it's very popular. So those 2 are probably the most popular cohorts, and they typically range between 35 and 40 students, and they're just coming out of the woodworks. We just can't keep up with the demand. But we also do have cohorts in higher education student services. We have one in STEM that's going to evolve into STEAM, which will include the arts. We also have one that focuses on creativity and generative design. And we have one that also is about language literacy and culture. And so I think we're doing some really creative things. And again, the demand for all of the cohorts has been phenomenal. We also are exploring ideas around how we create accountable. When you're, of course, writing a collaborative dissertation, it's much more challenging. But ensuring that with these collaborative dissertations that students are being held accountable and helping them understand how they can conceptualize writing a dissertation that looks different than the traditional PhD dissertation. Whereby, for instance, with chapters 3 and 4, students are collecting their own, they have their own population or sample, and they are collecting their own data. Each one of them are, but they work together collaboratively around chapters 1, 2, and 5 in some respects. And so it's been very interesting experience, and I think students are probably even more challenged because they have to figure out how they integrate their efforts to just ensure that everyone is contributing in a very intentional way. And so it has been very, very challenging. They feel very uncomfortable, but I want them to bask in the discomfort and understand that, we want it to be a work that is truly transformative. And again, in ensuring that everyone is participating, in an equal way.
Thank you. Just curious, my mind is going a mile a minute here because I'm listening to how many people have heard something at their table that has them thinking about what they can take back to their institution. Wow, good. One last person would like to talk very briefly about something that you've heard that's got you thinking. Is there anybody who would like to speak up for somebody at the table?
So obviously I'm just stealing a lot of ideas. So he talked about how when he attended the orientation for students, and social justice was the last PowerPoint slide, and that was the beginning and end of social justice in the program, and that he flipped it on the head so that every part from admissions all the way to dissertation and graduation is infused with social justice. And one of the things that he talked about that I thought was a genius idea is that in the admissions process, there's an interview with all the faculty, there's an interview with current Ed.D. students, but there's also a writing sample that they do on the site. And I heard about this yesterday, but what I didn't hear until today is that this writing sample that they do is in response to the question, what does social justice mean to you, and how have you displayed it in your own context? And I thought, what a great thing. And speaking to someone else who said, what about the ones who haven't? He says they admit them as well because he wants to bring them along. And they know what they're getting into at the same time. So I thought that was a great idea.
Thank you. So we're going to transition to our next breakout session. You guys raised a lot of great ideas in the share. Thank you for sharing. We still have not gotten the video working quite well yet with the audio. So I'm going to follow Lee's lead and tell you a little bit about Leslie Richard. Dr. Richard is a recent graduate. She was one of my graduate students and our doctoral students. And her dissertation focused on developing understanding around why there are so few African American and 50% white or other. So the population in the AP courses was very low, it was like 5%. So there's a really big difference there. So she wanted to understand why that's happening. They had tried multiple interventions over time. They had tried multiple ways to better recruit, things like that. But what was happening still wasn't working. So she stepped back and did an investigation rather than an intervention. And she uncovered some really powerful stories from some who are now young women in her program at her school. So I won't give too much away because we have a presentation later today where Dr. Richard will be with me to present. But the idea for her then is this idea of activism. She has sort of found herself being the focal point now of new conversations at her school. Other teachers have heard about her work. Other students have heard about her work. And they are now coming to her and saying, I want to help, or I'm interested in that too, or what did you find out? Or, so there are new conversations happening in her school because of her dissertation. And she has now sort of become an unofficial spokesperson for thinking about issues of inequity in her school. So we thought that was an example of something that might be an activist, need to be activist, and then how might we follow up with her? How might we measure things like that? And that's where Dr. Kiehl is now going to take us to measure.
Okay, great. Yes, this is exactly what we're looking for, is what is happening at the beginning of the program, even starting in the admissions process, throughout the program, and then what happens after the program. And so we've talked about what is the profile of an activist, what are strategies we use as the program is moving forward, as students are moving through the program, and then how do we measure that both during the program, possibly even in the admissions process, during the program, and then after the program. And these are conversations we are having, and this is emerging in our program as well. So we're asking you to pull out your yellow sheet, and if someone will also be the recorder with the sheet in the middle of the table to share ideas from the table. This is where we will talk about outcomes, ways that you want to look at, what are the outcomes you're looking for. Some of the things we are looking at is or how do students demonstrate activism, both within the program and when they finish the program. And we want to capture things you're thinking about. These can be things happening, again, within your courses, assignments you're doing. How do you measure if that assignment is successful in developing a student's understanding of activism, their activism through conference presentations, through other things they're doing. This can be aspects as you're working toward the dissertation or dissertation in practice. What are you seeing in that dissertation or dissertation in practice that is giving you evidence that you are implementing these things throughout the program? And then after the program, again, how are these graduates demonstrating activism? And one of the things we're working on is a survey and working to gather information from our alumni to understand what they perceive as activism in their roles and how that is emerging in their roles, whatever those roles may be. So that's one thing we're looking at is alumni work to understand how they are demonstrating activism. So if you'll take about 7 minutes or so at your table and talk through, I know that's not a lot of time to talk about outcomes and then the measures or how you will look at those quality indicators, but if you'll take some time to discuss ideas for evaluating how activism is running throughout the program and after the program. the ideas that came about at the table. Great.
Good morning, I'm Julie McIntosh from the University of Findlay, and when we built our EDD program, we built a course into the end of the program that's taken after they complete the dissertation, where they put together a publishable article or a presentation. So that allows them kind of that call for action that we heard earlier, that they take that piece and present. And recently at our Midwestern Educational Research Association, we had 17 EDD students presenting at that conference.
So much. Great idea. Other ideas anyone want to share? Some of your starting conversations about outcomes and measures? Anyone else have any ideas that came out at your table? Okay, well, again, we appreciate you going through the conversation to talk through. Oh, good. Thank you.
Hi, our issue wasn't really around specifically looking at measures, but what we talked about was concern about the use of the term problem and the possibility that the idea of identifying a problem reinforced certain forces that perpetuate inequities. So yeah, it reinforces the idea that education is a problem-solution kind of endeavor. Camille at our table suggested maybe opportunity for change.
Great suggestion. Again, things emerging as we're discussing this, not framing it around problems, but really looking at what are things that are happening and what can we do about those. So thank you for that. And again, we're concluding, and we hope that you'll continue to think about these things, and someone will be around to pick up your yellow sheets from the table. And we, again, thank you for talking about potential evaluation strategies. I know this is one of the things we are continuing to talk about in our program. And I'm going to turn it back over to Chris to provide some concluding thoughts and where we're going as we move forward with these discussions.
So thank you, all of you, for what sounded like some great conversation at the tables and what's going to be some really awesome data for us to kind of unpack. We do plan to organize, analyze, and represent that data for everyone. We will be sharing that in a couple of ways. One way, we are going to be working on a special issue of impacting education that'll focus on what we did today, this idea of the EDD activist. So there is a call for manuscripts for that out right now. So if you have some writing that you've done or want to do quickly, I know you're dying to do that right now, right? But I'm sorry? No, that's plenty of time, right? But we do have that call out, and then we are going to have an article based on what we learned here today there as well. We're also going to be trying to think about the tentative profile for the EDD activists. We have profiles on the CFED site, so think about maybe how that might fall into place there. I think that's, am I missing something? I think that's it. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you again to our colleagues at South Carolina for opening our session. Your other session is this afternoon, right? Your breakout session is this afternoon? Yeah. All right, so we are ready to move this convening forward. We're going to take about a 15-minute break, and then you're off to the exchanges. We'll meet back here just before lunch to award our Dissertation and Practice of the Year award and to have lunch together. So enjoy.